just tracing the ruler. You could also do it freehand. It does not have to be perfect. And just make sure you have somewhat of a straight line there, which is part of the practice. And the next step is this. Once I have just 4, you could actually do more than this. And I would really, for that person that really wants to explore and see how far you can go with this, I would recommend push it. Push it, see how far you can go with it. Um, what we're going to do is I'm going to start with the pencil that I mentioned before, which is a 2H. Now notice that I'm going kind of close to each other. So from 2H, I'm going from here, this pencil, to HB, and then I'm going to use a 2B, and then I'm going to do a little jump to a 6B. But notice that they're kind of spaced out, just hopping one, not going too far this way, but you'll get the sense of what we're about to do. Now with the very sharp pencil, I want to mention the next very important thing, and we'll revisit this a little more in the next section, which is how you're going to hold your tool. How we hold our pencil, it is crucial. Um, the way we all learn for the first time how to do this was probably like this. When you're about 10, 12 months old, this is how you held that tool and just all over the walls and, until somebody told you, wait, no, this is how you do it, and started placing you what we call a tripod grip. Tripod because we usually put it somewhere between 3 fingers here, somewhere around here, usually very close to the tip. The closer, um, the tighter, actually we begin to feel some pains and aches. Um, Actually, the way to hold this tool in its proper way, the way you would see a master or a professional artist holding this, forcing themselves to actually grab the tool as it's supposed to, would be this, which is called the underhand grip. So you're going to place the pencil on your index finger and just hold it with the thumb. Now, this is the way. Obviously, you can use your middle finger here to add support, but this is what you want. So it's still somewhat of a tripod, but instead of putting the pressure, and that's what I want you to focus on, is now your thumb and your index, just by squeezing, you can feel how much pressure you can put on there. So you're going to be more in control of the tool. Now, the closer you get to the tip, the more control. The further away you get from the tip, you're going to actually be able to control the value. And that's what we want to try to do here. And notice that yes, you trade off a little bit of control because it's a longer distance from the tip. But you can also see that even with high pressure as I squeeze this, the pencil will respond in a very different way. So testing both is going to be crucial. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to write right here on the side which pencil I was using for this exercise. Now, force yourself. You can go ahead and, no, this doesn't work for me yet. Go ahead and grab your regular tip. And one last thing that I want to mention. The reason we are accustomed to do this is because this is how we learn to write. Most likely, we got used to drawing in the way we were writing. Now, for writing, notice that we are drawing some symbols and letters and numbers. We're mostly using just the finger action. Maybe some people that have a little bit more that calligraphy style would use a little bit of the wrist, but the range of motion is minimum. When you go to this grip, you are forced. The fingers become almost, again, forced to just deal with the pressure, a little bit of that control, but the range of motion comes from the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder. And notice what I can do now with this. It would be very different. My range of motion is more constricted here. So that is why. And when you want to deal with that range of motion, quality of line, and then the value of that line, and you're going to have to test this and give yourself the chance to push until you really just become accustomed to it, because it is the right way. So with this underhand grip, it could also become overhand grip. What do I mean by that? So I'm holding the pencil between my index thumb. I have my middle finger holding just a little more. You could have all 4 fingers on there and just with the thumb holding the pencil. It's up to you. You can lean your hand on the paper just to give you that extra. Of course, you're going to smudge anything you have there if you do this too much. Um, and you can turn it into an overhand grip. What does that mean? You would just hold it like this, and then you would work this way. So whatever's between here and here is what you want to kind of discover and play with. So I'm going to hold it a little bit close. This is, remember, a 2H. This is the lightest pencil that I'm going to be working with. And finding this range of motion, what I want to do is I'm going to start filling in. So this is kind of like coloring in. And I want to start with the absolute lightest. I want to see if I can show you something here really quick, because this is, oh yeah, perfect. This is very important as well. How much pressure I add to the paper. What I want to realize is paper has tooth. They call it tooth, which is the texture of the paper. When I press my pencil right against the paper, what I'm doing is I'm pushing on that tooth. So all this graphite, the material that is coming off of the pencil, is grabbing on to that tooth. So let me put it this way. If you were drawing on plastic, the graphite would not grab on. The reason it grabs onto the paper is because, and I'm going to show you here, imagine the paper under a microscope. It literally looks like this, like the Andes Mountains, basically. Ridges, valleys. So when we rub our pencil above it, little particles of graphite are falling in and at the tip and valleys of those, in this case, tooth of the paper. So being delicate with this, and what happens is when we begin to add more pressure, and I kind of want to do this for the demonstration, we hurt the tooth. And all of a sudden, you begin to see this shiny thing happening. The graphite is not piling on those peaks and valleys. Now the graphite is just piling on top of graphite. So what is my tip? You want to really be kind to the paper. And you want to just literally paint it on. Paint it on. So as I draw these vertical lines up and down from edge to edge, I want to begin to, let me switch back over here so you could see a little more of the picture. Now disregard this. This was just part of that demo there where I made that graphite very shiny. And what I want you to do is one of 2 ways. You're going to start from 0 and you're going to bring it all the way to, now I'm adding just a little more pressure, but I'm trying, again, to keep in mind those valleys, the top of those hills, and just feel that I'm not pressing them down, flattening them. I'm just, with the repetitive motion, back and forward, adding a little more graphite, obviously making it darker. When it begins to get shiny, you're actually hurting the quality of your line, the quality of your graphite on paper, and it becomes less and less controlled. So notice that from here to here, I could actually take this way lighter and challenge yourself. What would it take to go from here to here and develop it into one of 2 ways? By adding just a little more pressure as you move from left to right. And I'm actually doing this way too fast just for the demo. because you should be doing this very slow, pacing yourself. And the two ways that I want to mention are one, adding a little more pressure, or number two, doing a one pass. That means I went all the way with the same equal amount of pressure and then work my way back, meaning I'm going to give this whole thing two passes and I won't go all the way to the edge. I'll just leave a fraction of it and then go back a third time, meaning from here to here now it has 3 layers, and then come back a fourth time, maybe halfway, and then come back, meaning this section has 5 layers. So basically layering and repeating passes of graphite on the paper. The idea of this exercise, I would be done with my 2H there. I'm going to just skip. This would be HB. This would be a 2B. And here we said it's a 6B. Notice that with the HB, again, I'm going to grab my pencil all the way at the tip of the pencil. And this should be longer. It's a shorter pencil, but the longer the pencil, the better. And I'm going to try to literally, I have to touch it. Otherwise, I couldn't control the tip. But it's to the point where if I lifted this, the pencil would almost fall off my hand. So it's literally the weight of the pencil pretty much laying down that graphite. And you would be amazed. Oh my gosh, look at that. Let me go ahead and switch camera to see if you could see it. There's the HB. And notice, again, my fingers are barely touching it. The weight of the pencil. So pay attention to the minimum amount of pressure that you have to apply on your pencil to be able to get a nice quality of graphite on the paper. And maybe it doesn't look like much. We tend to want to go dark really fast. So here I'm going to have to spend some time, and I can already see the difference. So this would literally be the 0 of 2H. Now, 2 ways I could do this as I move a little bit left to right is to begin to add a little bit of pressure, meaning I'm now feeling the thumb, put a little more pressure. I'm feeling a little more control over the tip. And the final thing I want to mention here is this as well. Notice that if I were drawing lines, individual, 1, 2, and you see me going like this, but what I'm doing is one line, top to bottom, bottom to top, top to bottom, bottom to top, but much faster. The distance between those lines, it's what's key. You don't want to be doing this exercise, and I'm going to do it, let's say, down here. You don't want to be doing this exercise like this, where you could see paper between the lines. What you want to do is almost put every single line right on top of the other one. And as you progress, you can put a little more pressure. You can just stay on there for 1, 2, 3 extra seconds and notice how you can control. And the one thing you really want for drawing skills is control your tool. How the quality of your line and the lightness or darkness of your line is going to come into play in order for you to have really great successful drawings. Now this may seem like, wow, this is too advanced, but there's nothing that gets more basic than how to hold and how to handle your tool. I usually use a reference, which is, here's a hammer. How do you use a hammer? Well, instinctively, we would just grab the hammer like this and then flick our wrist and use it like this. We would not grab a hammer like this and try to use a hammer like this. So with a pencil, again, we have so many years of doing this that it's going to feel weird to just try to do this and really begin to discover the versatility of what you can do with the range of motion and the value, the pressure value control of that graphite on your paper. So moving a little bit along, I'm going to just go to 10. This is another way. You want to see what you can do at 0. And then you want to come here and you just want to, again, without hurting the paper. What I mean by that, remember, the tooth. Don't, if you feel like you're really pressing it down and you begin to see that shiny effect, all I'm doing is going over and over this section, back and forth, back and forth. Now you can pace yourself. Maybe I am going too fast. You could go a little bit slower, and that's a matter of personality. I'm also rotating the pencil tip as I come back and forth because sometimes the graphite on one end gets a little bit flat. So as you rotate it, it stays sharp. And sometimes it gives you these nice, really interesting, surprising variations. So this, I would say it's somewhere between 8, 9, 10, 12 passes, meaning I've gone over it, over the same section 10, 12 times. And I can begin to see, obviously, how dark this pencil is. In comparison to this one, not much. But let me go ahead and jump to the 6B so you could see the difference. Again, very light pressure. I'm going to see how many passes does it need to reach the darkness of an HB, 2H, or even a 2B. Now, when I talk about the tooth of the paper, the softer the pencil, the richer quality of textures you're going to begin to see. You begin to see the actual pulp of the fibers of the paper. So you want to maintain that. You don't want to press it down and kind of make it go away. You want to, in a way, become very intimate with that section of the paper, and just, I always say it's almost like caressing the paper with a lot of love. And notice that just with a few passes, just about the same amount of time, not a lot of pressure. I have not shifted the amount of pressure that I'm adding to the, and notice how long I'm holding the pencil. But I could already see the variation in darkness. And yes, we could bring this much, much darker here. Let me go ahead and getting closer to the edge. Just add a nice one final section here where I get closer to the tip. And remember, the key is not hurting the tooth of the paper. You want to feel like the graphite is still grabbing onto the paper, not grabbing onto the previous graphite that you were just placed on there. The formula, the actual tip that shows you that is when it begins to get shiny. And I'm sure we've all been there. So there's a 6B. And it could go past this. It could go further, darker. And that's what I want you guys to really test out, play with, discover. Now, it would take us the whole class to do this exercise properly. I just wanted to introduce it, and you would figure out, okay, doing this exercise, my goal is to go from 0 and discover what my 0 to 10 versatility with each individual pencil. But at the same time, it is one of the greatest exercises to practice your pressure, pencil control, range of motion, your tip, um, variations, the rotation. You could try it again. Notice that I'm just using my fingers here, but you could do it with your wrist. You could do it larger on a full page. You can make them thinner. You can make them vertical. So you're not working this type of line, but you could be working horizontal type of line. So this exercise, the idea would be to basically do this. And notice here I used, I went from 6H to 2H to HB to 2B to 6B. And it is very clear that the variations in tonality, in the value that I can create with each individual pencil, with the graphite, this would be the type of page that I want you guys to create. So that would be exercise number 1.